Jody. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, that we haven't had a good chat.
Yes. Pat McDonald, Sister Pat McDonald, OP, but previously known as...
I was Margaret Anthony.
For a very short time.
Yeah, short time in the 60s when we had those other names.
Would you say you were a Vatican II crowd?
Kind of. Yeah, we came in after that era time. I mean, everything was changing. Who knew what was up? Who didn't know? But that was my entree into figuring things out.
Yes.
It was fun. It was fun.
And as novices, did you not have the privilege of watching Weber Center be built?
Yes. We were the last group in there, and they moved us out midway in our novitiate year. And so we moved over to Madden, and then we saw the dismantling of the old building and the resurrection of the new one. So that was exciting.
Did you ever live in Weber Center, or had you made profession already?
Made profession, yeah. I never lived there, yeah, because I went out. 20 of us had college prior to entering, so those 20 of us were sent out, and then I believe it was the other 50 or so that stayed in and lived there in the new Weber. So.
And you're a very close group, aren't you?
Some certainly more than others. It's kind of the ebb and flow. But yeah, certainly. Like Martin Luther King holiday, for many years, Pat Leonard, Kathy Nolan, and I always spent that weekend together. Whether Kathy was in Florida, I was in Michigan, Pat was in Chicago, and we all like the social justice component, et cetera. So some of us, are closer, and we have people sprinkled around the country that I stay in. Got Ann Ryan down in Florida, and down in Cincinnati. So just good people around, yeah, and then some certainly closer.
And you belie the fact that you made your Golden Jubilee a couple of years ago?
I did, yeah. 2 years ago it'll be, 2016, yeah.
Well, when you look back on those 50 years, what stands out as far as your service to others and your ministry to others?
Well, when I look back, Jody, I get excited. I have had so many opportunities, for education, for travel, for doing multiple professional situations, being around, teaching and working around the world in 4 continents, 22 countries.
Really?
Yeah, and you know what? That's enriching. The more you find out other cultures, other people, the more you realize we're all pieces along the journey. We're all part of the path in different ways. So I have to say, I have had, I don't want to say 50 wonderful years. I don't want to sound too, but they've been good. Yeah, they've been. First half of my career, I worked in mental health for Macomb County and local county, state government, and doing programs, and then consulting, and now formally teaching. So it's been good.
You love to teach.
I do. And consulting, I do a lot of that with various professional organizations. And technically, when you're consulting, you're also teaching. You're helping people find new ways. And so I like to integrate all of those things together. So it's really been very enriching, and it's ongoing right now.
What skill or particular focus you had that people would draw you, bring you across the oceans to other countries?
Okay. Well, I did do some teaching. Siena Heights, we had a graduate program, a 1-week course. I taught in Ireland for 10 years. With our master's.
What was your focus in teaching?
Well, in that we did the comparative studies of healthcare systems around the world, and First Nations, Middle Nations, and developing nations. And students had an integration of seeing and doing and studying. And when we're in these various countries, we go and we literally see hospitals. We see what they have available. So it's also immersion into, like some countries have no outpatient mental health services for their people. In South Africa, they had 2 psychiatrists for 400,000 people.
Oh my.
So you begin to see the advantages of first world nations and countries that are about human development and enrichment. So the democratic focus of working with people and having all people within a nation participate, that's enriching, and you can see the benefits of that. So it's kind of fun.
What country most stunned you because of poverty or?
Well, certainly when you travel like that, you get to go in the nice hotels, and that's real nice. Love those 5-star hotels, which was part of the, the program. But from there, we always went out to different places. And one of the things that has staying power with me was in South Africa. And we got to go off of Cape Town over to Robben Island, where Mr. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. And he was there for what he thought, and that was about wanting to reclaim his country for his people, democracy.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of standing outside his jail cell and looking at, that's reflective, that's meditation. And there was a man that said in his book that I read that he knew he could not leave the jail cell when they were liberated. He could not take his anger with him. So he literally, by choice, writes in his book that he left his anger in that jail cell so that would free him to work for his nation and his people. That has stayed with me, Jody. Yeah, that's powerful. It is. And so a few opportunities like that. So then it makes you think, so what are you doing with your life? So it's things like that. And then...
What is your position today? You're with Santa Ynez University, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm there in the graduate program, and because I have multiple educational pieces in my background and licensure, I'm the director of our higher education leadership masters, which is totally online, so we have students around. And then I work also in our leadership, business ethics, and clinical mental health program, and our teacher education. So I teach in those varieties.
You're never going to be bored.
You know what? I'm not. I'm not. You know what? I think you choose life. And so, no, I can't say I'm bored. But my family, we all do stuff. We do stuff. So
someone in the family runs a restaurant, I know.
Yeah, we have 2 restaurants in downtown Detroit. Soshi Melko, which is considered the most popular, gets these Detroit Free Press Awards every year, and Mexican Town. They're just a block apart, downtown by the Ambassador Bridge. And my sister and her husband did that 40 years ago, and now they're thriving. And now their oldest daughter, Colleen DiMatteo, runs them. But the family's involved.
Do you get complimentary meals?
My family's very good to me. Just look at me. No, it's fun. Yeah, it's good. And you know what? You learn business when you hang around and go to places, and it's all the human element stuff.
Well, going back to the online programs, Sister Peg Albert said that you've received quite a few recognitions for the online program at Siena.
Yes, Siena has done very, very well. We had the privilege of a good 10 years or so more. Jim O'Flynn, brother of one of our sisters, Peg O'Flynn, he finished up at IBM. He finished his career. And I said to him, Jim, why don't you come and get your master's with us? At that point, it was human resources. And then I'd like you to teach for us. Well, he did. He did do that. And then with all of his knowledge from IBM and online, he was very instrumental with a few of our other instructors, Dr. Ted Dunn, Dr. Jim Sam. They formed a small group, core group, Mike Winstrom, and there were others, Gail Ryder. They pulled together and really laid the foundation and set up solid rules, regulations, policies. So that really positioned us from day one, and it was really, really good to work with colleagues like that. So I work with also John Fick, Dr. John Fick, in our healthcare masters, and he and I worked together for a good 20 years. So we kind of were able to be melded in with the group. So it was just enriching, and we've continued to grow, and now we have some of the same people we brought on new. Liliana Toder does an awesome job with our online component, and she also taught at Dominican High School at one point in her career. So you see the threads of our staff. All of us together have done multiple things, and you converge it together. So it's kind of, yeah, it is, it is. And now we have students around the world. We have students in Afghanistan, Iraq, so they're dealing with that piece in their world. And then other men and women in the Navy, Air Force, around the world. So
doesn't that thrill you?
it is, it's exciting. It's a new form of learning in a new day and in a new way. And you know what, I think that's what Dominicanism has always been about. It's been about enrichment, growth, the contemplation, and give to others the fruits of your contemplation. And I think when we learn something new and different, we readily share that, and nobody does it themselves. Nobody does it, but Peg Albert's super president, and she sees the wisdom of the variety of people.
Well, it's quite touching to hear the expansion of
Yeah,
the program.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And the students themselves, they are enriched when, I mean, and these are fine, competent men and women professionals in their field, but when they can go to another location and learn and see, they take that with them, and then they better where they are in their world and their.
do they graduate
Oh, yeah.
online?
Well, many of them, it's interesting, do come physically to campus because they want the experience. We had a student a couple of years ago from Hawaii. Her program was totally online, and she was one of the keynote speakers. And we have students from various parts of the country who take their program totally online, but want an experience of the concreteness of brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so that's another thing they see in part of the bigger picture.
Why do I associate conflict management with you?
Well,
That was your focus at some point?
I hope you don't zero in on me personally, but I get called, Jody, or requested to work with various groups. One program I entitled Dealing with Difficult People. And mostly when somebody hires you in for consulting or to do these workshops, it's because of issues in the workplace. I mean, it's never the work. I mean, I've worked with lawyer groups, nurses, nursing educators, and I don't have those skill sets, but it's how do you help people get along? And whether that's a small group or a large group, and the conflict is all about lack of recognition or tolerance of other people's ways of doing it. And we all bring our skill sets, so how do you help people converge together? And that's exciting, you know, and sometimes people haven't had privileges of learning their way is a good way, but their way is not for everybody. So the conflict, one of the things I do when I get invited to those kinds of sessions is, if it's appropriate, and the person who's hiring me, I will always ask them, can I send 2 or 3 questions to the participants and have them respond anonymously to me? And so, and they do that. So I take their responses and I incorporate them anonymously into what their perceptions are of the business, the organization, the system. And a lot of times it's human needs. It's human needs. People
Recognition, affirmation.
Yeah, and appreciation, and so you help groups do that. And in my own studies, there's some phenomenal business organizations who've done it, like Procter and Gamble down in Ohio. Some businesses have phenomenal reputations for how they work with their employees, and there are many others. But so the conflict resolution, ultimately, we resolve conflict within, either by acceptance or putting things in their proper places. So as I'm doing my work, I'm also learning, you know. I'm learning, you learn about yourself. So those are good things.
Pat, I remember that you used to live on the outskirts of, I don't know if that's the right word or not, of Dominican High School.
Oh, yeah.
Who were the women you lived with there?
Okay, that was a house that I believe we owned. The house is Mr. St. Charles lived there. And apparently he was the custodian of Dominican decades ago. So then the house stayed within the congregation. So when I lived there, I moved in there with Kathy Kenny. She worked with Catholic Charities, and Barb Herr, who came in from Nevada, and she was there at Dominican. And then they moved on, and then Chris Matthews and Maggie Menard moved in. So needless to say, we had a lot of good conversation and good laughs. So the good women, and you learn from all of them. And then Peg O'Flynn moved in there, and Margie Hahn. And
Well, you were the house mother. You were
not
the
exactly. I'm
continuity.
hardly a mother, but for probably yeah, I think I did. I was probably.
Where were you studying or ministering at the time?
Well, at the time, the beginning, I was. We had the Human Development Program in Detroit, and I was the administrator there. That was a day treatment program. And then I also worked in Macomb County Mental Health, and I had a private practice at Macomb Family Services for several years. And then I always adjuncted for various colleges and universities. And I've started at adjuncting with Central Michigan, and I still periodically do a class or so for them over the years. And that's another contact, so you bring that, and now I'm full-time at Siena.
I heard you speak of what I call wisdom, professional wisdom, that you would purposely have an interview for a job every year so that you kept your resume up.
Yeah, exactly.
I suspect you're not doing that anymore.
Well, I'm busy enough doing enough stuff. But I'd always help me, those interviews every couple of years, help you see what people are looking for in businesses and organizations, because the evolution of change hits that segment of society too. And for 2 years in my career, I worked for the Archdiocese of Detroit. And that was an opening, an intellectual opening for me, because I never worked in the institutional church. So I was downtown for...
Who was the bishop? Or cardinal?
Maida was, yeah. So you get, I was the Christian service coordinator for all the 5-6 counties. So then I would do workshops around there. And that was fun, you know. And then from there, I've got many professional connections, and I still connect and do professional training.
And currently you live in Adrian. How's that work for you?
You know what, Jody? It's good. It's fine. I lived in St. Clair Shores for 25 years, but my work was there, and that was fine. And but now I would deal with Siena, and I connect. We have campus in Battle Creek, Lansing, Southfield, here, Benton Harbor, and I don't go every week to all those places, but I crunched some numbers, and this moving to Adrian was more strategically located. And plus, one of our faculty moved on after a year, and my licensed counseling background was needed here. So, as long with the leadership and the education. So it was a smart move. And because I travel a lot, and I'm on our hospital board out west.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so I go out there every other month to Nevada.
Nevada.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and that's another stretch, you know, you see the whole health care the reality of what systems are trying to do. And Dignity Health in the West, you know, what the instructions we get, provides more services for the poor and the indigent than most groups. So that's something you're proud of. It. Those were our original women setting up that philosophy in 1947. So it continues.
Weren't you proud of the reaction of the hospital in Henderson at the time of that massacre?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah. And
They gave free services, didn't they?
exactly. And we had a meeting. I go out next week to our other board meeting, but in November, which was just a few weeks after that shooting, at that board meeting, the head of the hospitals gave us, as board members, relational situation of what happened during those hours. And they talked about, as soon as that happened, within minutes, within like 8 minutes, I believe, all people got word and went to their respective hospitals. So the doctors and the nurses mobilized to serve people. And some of our staff, our administrators, were telling us that they began to realize the trauma and the impact. And one of our financial person was saying she got 4 hours of sleep the first 2 days, and then she realized the trauma of all the health care, et cetera, that they were going to have to absorb. She said, we can't charge these people. So she took it to the powers to be, and the administration made the decision that they would not charge those victims. And we made that known in our hospitals. And then other hospitals followed suit.
Oh, my.
So you know what? The city of Las Vegas came together in such a profoundly beautiful way. In the Bellagio Hotel, also, I heard, invited the families of the victims as they had to, and housed them free also. So the city itself, it was a community together. So that's really good to be part of.
Oh my,
Yeah.
how beautiful.
So you know what? You grow in all those experiences. So,
Pat, who is the Adrian Dominican that inspired you or planted your vocation? I mean, the idea that you had a vocation.
okay. Well, Jody, I need to say that my mother was Baptist, so I didn't grow up with a lot of Catholicism. I didn't even know what a May crowning was till I got to college.
So did you go to Siena?
Yeah, I was enrolled at Wayne State University in business, and I was going to go there out of high school. And then my parish priest, Father George Gaynor, he was my pastor.
Say that name again, it's lovely to hear that.
Father George Gaynor. And he was my pastor, and I told him I was going to Wayne State. So he said, he called me over a couple days in the rectory, and he said, why don't you consider Siena Heights? And I said, in my head, I never even heard of Siena Heights, and I thought it was ice cream. Because every Monday, 4 of us used to count the Sunday collection in high school, and Father Gaynor would give us ice cream after. So he said, how about Siena Heights? So I said, oh, sure. I thought it was a new flavor of ice cream. So anyway, he looked at my stuff and said, no, you qualify for some scholarships. And I was a pretty good student. So I transitioned to Siena, and in 1 month of being here as a freshman, I said to myself, this is the environment that's life-giving.
Wow.
And so 1 month later, I walked over to this side of campus and said, I'd like to enter. And Rosemary Ferguson said, well, Pat, there's a little more to it than that. So I said, okay, tell me what I have to do. But, you learn about life. So, you know what, I'd have to say, yeah.
So no nun walked you over?
No, nobody, no. I walked myself over, not knowing there's a process. So it's, you know what, it's been good. And
How providential. Thank you, George Gaynor.
Yeah, that's what I say too. So, but then it's certainly been a lot of good people along the way. I've been blessed with friends. on many levels.
Who would you like to sit down and have dinner with, if people throughout your life, that living or deceased?
Certainly, I miss my dear friend Marge Neighbor, who died in 2009.
Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
her name. What a soul,
Yeah.
beautiful
And
soul.
Peg O'Flynn, they were in the same crowd, so I've been fortunate to know many of that group. But sitting down, I certainly read and study biographies. I've been very impressed with Mr. Nelson Mandela. I look at people in history, and I think I'm supposed to be related to Queen Victoria, supposedly the 72nd cousin. So she was very influential for almost 100 years. When you think all of her children were in the kingdoms and the duchies all over that part of the world. So I would like to kind of sit down with her. She's one person. And I would like to, the oppressive women who've had to cope with so much that's out of the realm of my experience. So we always say, to whom much has been given, much will be expected. So I like to learn all I can and then use it productively in the way I can with what I do. So there's
that would be a 2-hour or more meal conversation going on. Well, Pat, thank you,
You're welcome.
you. And for all that you do in the name of the congregation. I know you would tell people that you're going to the company headquarters,
world headquarters.
World headquarters, when you would come to
Adrian.
Adrian.
And I did. Yeah. World headquarters.
It is the world headquarters.
Well, when you think about it and you look at that phenomenal map the group put together with where we are in the world, that's energizing. But we wouldn't be there if we didn't have fine people who preceded us to make that happen. And now we continue to live the mission and do the ministry.
Yes, but thank you for your energy, your giving, the sharing of your education and experience. And it's just a thrill to know that our prayer here and our presence here helps support your mission of preaching.
Oh, well, thanks, Jody. This has been delightful, and thank you to Ashley for making it happen.
Yes, amen.
Yes, amen.